At the end of the 18th century, the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth was carved up by Prussia, Russia and Austria. But then, who was there? Napoleon, and he installed in 1807 the Duchy of Warsaw. But Napoleon was defeated. So the question remains, what happened to the Poles that now had to live under Russian and Prussian rule? In this video, we're going to take a look at the Russification and Germanization campaigns that took place in the 19th century. Stay tuned! Welcome back, regular viewers, and if this is your first time here, if you just stumbled upon this channel and you think, who the hell is this guy? My name is Stefan, I'm a history teacher from the Netherlands and I'm hustling history for you. And if you like this content, please consider subscribing. Do hit that notification bell so you'll be updated when a new video comes out. The Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth was carved up at the end of the 18th century. However, by that time, the French Revolution had taken place and Napoleon started his conquest of Europe. His armies overran the former territories of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, and the French installed a pro-French vassal state called the Duchy of Warsaw in 1807. However, Napoleon was defeated and the largest part of the former Duchy of Warsaw was now incorporated into the Russian Empire. Napoleon, he might have been defeated, but his ideas remained. These ideas came from the Enlightenment. Think of the idea of self-determination. Well, these ideas resonated with those who lived in the Russian Empire. The Russian parts of Poland were now named Congress Poland, and the Poles had some kind of autonomy. The Congress was given a liberal constitution and had its own Sejm, parliament. Poland was ruled by the Tsar's brother Grand Duke Konstantin Pavlovich of Russia, who in a way carried out the policies that granted Poland some kind of autonomy. However, almost from the get-go, opposition to the Tsar was made impossible, and in the following years freedom of speech was abolished and censorship applied. The Russian Secret Service, the Ochrana, started to prosecute Polish oppositional organizations. Duke Constantin's successor, Nicholas I of Russia, carried out a more repressive policy, which was all about orthodoxy, autocracy and nationality. With orthodoxy meant Russian efforts to replace the Polish Catholic religion by Russian Orthodox religion. It also meant the end of Polish democratic tradition. The Russian autocrat was in charge of everything, and that did not sit well with the Poles. And in 1831, the Sejm, the Polish parliament, deposed of Nicholas I of Russia. Now in response to this, Russian troops were sent to Poland to suppress this so-called November Uprising. Now this November Uprising started the previous year at the end of November, and it started when military leader Piotr Wysocki started a revolt in the army barracks of Warsaw. Now initially this November Uprising was successful. However, the Russians, they proved to be numerically superior, and thus they crushed the uprising. Poland lost a great deal of its autonomy and became an integral part of the Russian Empire. The Russification campaigns became more intensive. The Polish currency, the zloty, was replaced by the Russian ruble. Roman Catholicism was outlawed. The parliament, the Sejm, was abolished, and the Polish armies became part of the Russian armies. The conscription of Polish men in the Russian army would later, in 1863, lead to the January Uprising. Young conscripts were joined by high-ranking Polish-Lithuanian officers. However, they were badly organized, lacked foreign support, and faced a numerically superior enemy. The Polish insurgents then switched to guerrilla tactics. The Russians responded with brutal measures like public executions and deportations of thousands of people to Siberia. After this January Uprising, Poland was now fully absorbed into the Russian Empire under the name of Vistula land. The Polish language was abolished in schools and offices, and Russian was made mandatory for everybody. And as a result of this, illiteracy rose because many people simply refused to learn the Russian language. Attempts to implement the Cyrillic alphabet earlier in the 1840s had failed. So let's take a look at the western parts of the former Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, who are now under Prussian rule. What happened to the Poles living in these areas? Well, Frederick the Great, he already sent over 100,000 German settlers, colonizers as you will, to the area to Germanize it. Frederick the Great, he did not like the Poles. He actually despised them. German was made an official language, and German nobles had to replace Polish nobles who saw their land being taken away from them. These Germanization policies, so to say, they happened in waves. After Napoleon, the Prussians lost Polish land to the Russians, who took over the biggest part of the former Duchy of Warsaw. The Prussians, on their turn, created the Grand Duchy of Posen. Part of this had belonged to the Duchy of Warsaw. At first, the Poles were given the right to practice their own culture. However, this later transformed into anti-Polish measurements. These anti-Polish policies were carried out more fiercely after the failed November Uprising in Russian Poland. The Poles in Prussia experienced more and more restrictions towards their culture. Polish people were taken off administration jobs, and the Polish language in education was diminished. Local Polish rule was made impossible. Catholic monasteries were taken over by the state. The German language was implemented in Prussian Poland, and Polish demonstrations against these policies were cracked down violently. When looking at high positions like mayors and other officials, these ranks were mostly filled with ethnic Germans, and the Poles were in a minority. However, looking at the demographics of the Duchy of Posen, only 1/3 was German, and 2/3 of the population identified itself as Polish. Under Frederick VI, who ruled from 1840, there was a relaxation in the anti-Polish measurements. The Polish language was now allowed in schools and even on some university departments. However, the Germanization policies did not come to an end. They were just implemented with less harsher rules. In 1848, a series of revolutions happened in Europe. Also, the Poles rose against their rulers. This was known as the Great Polish Uprising. It failed, and the Poles lost their autonomy. As a result of this, the Grand Duchy of Posen became now the province of Posen. Many Poles in Prussia decided to lay down their arms and focus on the improvement of their economical and political position. Many more waves of Germanization campaigns and therefore anti-Polish measurements would follow through the years. However, the Polish culture remained, and therefore we can say that these Germanization campaigns were not successful. One important state we should definitely not forget was the Free City of Krakow. Its full title was the Independent and Strictly Neutral City of Krakow and its territories, in Polish the Wolne, well, what it says there. It was actually the most autonomous Polish state after the Napoleonic Wars. It was established in 1815 at the Vienna Congress. It became a center of Polish nationalism, and during the November Uprising of 1830-31, weapons were transported from the City Republic into Congress Poland. After the uprising was crushed, the autonomy of the Free City was restricted by Russia and occupied by the Austrians from 1836. A Polish uprising took place in 1846, but because of poor planning, the Austrians crushed it. The Free City status was revoked, and the area became a part of the Kingdom of Galicia and Lodomeria, which was part of the Austrian Empire. In other words, annexation. Poland would regain its independence after the First World War. If you want to know more about the territorial evolution of Poland in the 20th century, you can click right here any second now. Shout out to my patrons, and especially to Henry Clarkson, Colin Castleman, and of course the President. The President, he donates $25 per month, and if you do that, you can choose an episode. In other words, you come up with a historical topic and I make an episode about it. And the President, he came up with this topic. So dear Mr. President, I hope you like this episode, and please leave a comment down below. Thank you for your support. Thank you all for watching. See you later.